If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. My channel is running a contest. When I get to 250 subscribers, one lucky person will get $100. All you need to do is be subscribed. It is that quick and easy. Good luck to all. We're in Dulce, New Mexico, about 200 miles away from Albuquerque. Our goal is to locate a secret underground base where the government reportedly has been housing aliens and carrying out strange experiments. Music playing. My name's Ken Storch. And there is definitely something strange going on in Dulce, New Mexico. My name is Bob. I'm an undercover operative, and Dulce is the ultimate undercover operation. Pat USKERT. We're here in Dulce meeting with Bob and Ken, investigators that have been looking into this area for over 10 years now. These guys have made Dulce the central focus of their investigations because they believe something really strange is going on here. What got you into the Dulce business? When we first learned about the Dulce papers from this retired Air Force colonel, we were told that there was an underground base here in the mesa. The Dulce papers surfaced in the 1980s. And they documented the levels of experimentation going on at that secret base. They also talked about a fight. We're here at the base of Archuleta Mesa to meet with archaeologist Garth Baldwin to discuss the geological makeup of the mesa and see if it's even possible that an underground base could be built here. Garth, we're here at the base of the Archuleta Mesa, inside of which there is reputed to be a top-secret base for genetic engineering. I guess the question for all of us is, what kind of engineering would it take to have created such a base inside the Earth? Can you tell us about the rock formations and what kind of rock we're dealing with? Upon the mountain, where you do find soil, it's between 1 foot and less, and then it's just bedrock. The upper strata up there that you can see exposed is a columnar basalt. That's much too fragmentary for any kind of drilling or anything else. It makes great fence posts, but it wouldn't necessarily support being ground out inside. But below that there are layers of basalt that are more structurally sound. There are also sandstones below that. It sounds like the top layer, very, very difficult to drill through. They'd have to start at the bottom of the mesa or near the bottom of the mesa where there is a stable stratum of rock that they could get into. Let's just say you were hired by the government to design an underground base. Would there be any reason for you to pick Archuleta Mesa? It's a mesa, so you've got a starting point where you know where the stratigraphic layers of rock are, so you've got a structure to begin with. According to the specifications that we've been given for this base, how much of a diameter does this have right here? The base can extend up to 4.87 miles. Minus 4.8 miles, is that correct? 4.8 miles diameter. That's the diameter of the base. That's about the size of the mesa. That would fit within the structure that you're talking about. Garth is telling us that Archuleta Mesa actually has the size to house something of this magnitude. And while I don't necessarily believe yet that there is a base inside the mesa, it's good to know that the possibility of it being there is real. It's conceivable that they're coming in through tunnels and actually drilling out space for this underground base from the bottom up. If that technology were true, then that would be possible. The human species has such a knowledge of mining and structural engineering that I'm not surprised by anything that we, our engineers, can do. I'm really happy to hear Garth's feedback about what the makeup of the mesa. And it does seem like he thinks it is possible to have an underground base there, even given the massive size of this thing. Garth said he didn't know what kind of technology we had that can expeditiously do this kind of drilling. But John Rhodes showed us that technology exists today. Therefore, we may be standing in the shadow of the Dulce base. Article number 2, narrator. Maybe the most well-known alien conspiracy surrounds the infamous Roswell UFO incident. So what really happened? Is there a logical explanation for this event, or is there a chance that it actually is an alien encounter? Let's find out in today's episode of Colossal Mysteries. It all started on June 14 of 1947 when a rancher in New Mexico named William Mac Brazel found something strange while out on horseback about 30 miles north of a small town called Roswell. He came across clusters of wreckage and debris that looked like some kind of plane had come crashing down from the sky. The crash site was full of large chunks of metal, rubber strips, tinfoil, and all kinds of strange bits and bobs. Puzzled by the peculiar find, the rancher decided to collect the materials from the site. The next day, Brazel read reports in the paper about an unidentified object flying over the area at night. 2 days later, Mac Brazel got up the nerve and told the local sheriff what he found, but if Brazel is to be believed, the sheriff whispered to him that he may have found a flying disc and that he should keep it confidential. The sheriff then contacted Roswell Army Airfield, who visited Brazel's ranch, collected the wreckage, and asked him to keep things under wraps. Of course, he didn't, and almost overnight local newspapers and tabloids were writing stories about the unidentified crash. More stories ran about the witnesses seeing strange, charred creatures inside the airfield, and before long the well-known UFO conspiracy theory was born. So, is there a chance that Mac Brazel stumbled across an authentic alien crash site near Roswell, New Mexico all those years ago, or is there an explanation for what they found? Immediately following the incident, the US military announced that the so-called flying saucer was nothing more than a run-of-the-mill weather balloon that had crashed during a windstorm. Newspapers who printed headlines about flying saucers issued corrections, and the Roswell flying saucer incident seemed to be over. The Roswell story quickly faded from the headlines, but interest in aliens and UFOs kept growing across the country. It seemed as though the Roswell incident was all but forgotten until the early 1980s, when two UFO researchers wrote a book about the incident. In their book, the duo claimed it was all a government cover-up. Aliens were actually found at the crash site of the UFO. Experts, government agencies, and members of the military all disputed and debunked the book's claims, but by this point, it was too late. A spark was lit, and before long more conspiracy theories started popping up around Roswell and other possible UFO sites across the country, and as it turns out, skeptics and conspiracy theorists weren't entirely wrong to doubt the official Roswell story. The government wasn't telling the whole truth when they claimed a weather balloon crashed near Roswell. In 1994, the US Air Force finally admitted that the weather balloon that crashed near Roswell wasn't your average aircraft. It was a secret US spy balloon that was part of a top-secret program called Project Mogul. Their objective: monitor Soviet nuclear tests by detecting sound waves in the upper atmosphere. The tech was quickly surpassed by other more advanced methods, but it took the military over 40 years to disclose the truth. Since the balloon was involved in a Cold War cover-up, rumors could grow. And what about those charred alien bodies people reported seeing at Roswell Army Airfield? Well, turns out there's an explanation for them too. A 1997 Air Force report determined that the alien bodies were actually parachuted crash test dummies that had been burned up in an accident. But for those who still believe all these explanations amount to nothing more than a giant government cover-up, and it's safe to say nothing is going to change their minds on that. Article number 3, music playing, narrator. On November 14, 2004, Commander David Fravor and his wingman pilot took off from the USS Nimitz, which was on maneuvers south of San Diego. David Fravor: I was the commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the Black Aces. We were flying brand new Super Hornets. It was an air defense exercise, 2 good guys against 2 bad guys, probably 70 miles, 60 miles off the coast in the gap between San Diego and Ensenada. Narrator: Suddenly, the pilots are contacted by radar operators on Princeton. David Fravor: the Princeton control comes up and says, "We're going to suspend training. We have real-world tasking." Narrator: The pilots are revectored to a new destination but aren't told why. So we start heading off to the west. The other airplane is on my left-hand side. I was the junior pilot, trying to keep up with the senior pilot in the lead aircraft. David Fravor: We're looking. And we don't see anything on the radars at all. And we're talking to each other, trying to figure this out. Narrator: Princeton's Aegis Spy-1 radar system is powerful enough to track an object as small as a baseball at an altitude of 80,000 feet. But the jets are flying blind. We're trying to see what was out there, which is difficult when you know what you're looking for. It's even harder when you don't know what you're looking for. David Fravor: So it goes down, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. It gets all the way down. They get to a point where they can't separate us from the blip. They call it to merge plot, which means you're in the same space as whatever you're looking for, and you've got to start looking outside because the radar can't help you anymore. Narrator: And far below in the water, they see what looks like a plane crash or a submerging submarine. Radio chatter: But the weapons officer in the rear seat of Fravor's jet spots something else. I hear, "Hey, Skipper, do you see?" And as he's saying that, I noticed the tic-tac. It's white. It has no wings. It has no rotors. I go, "Holy, what is that?" And he goes, "I don't know." Narrator: According to this leaked summary of the incident, contact was made here, 30 miles off the coast, 70 miles south of the US-Mexico border. At first, the strange craft stays close to the surface, moving, unlike anything the pilots had ever seen. This thing would go instantaneous from one way to another, similar to if you threw a ping-pong ball against a wall. And we start to kind of orbit because now we're going to watch this thing. We start a right-hand turn, and we're going from a clock code. The object is in the middle of the clock. And we're at 6 o'clock. And we're driving around in circles. So we get to about 9 o'clock, and it's just still doing its little erratic thing, kind of moving around this disturbance in the water. And I go, hey, I'm going to go check it out. I'm going down there. As we're coming down nice easy, we reach about the 12 o'clock position. And all of a sudden, it goes, burp, then it kind of turns. And now it's mirroring us, and it starts coming up. We're like, okay, now it knows we're here. It seemed to be aware. And it seems to recognize him. It goes from basically just almost a hover into a pretty aggressive climb up to our altitude. So then there's a bit of fear because now, you're out there dealing with something that you have no idea what it is. It's actually reacting to what we're doing. I kind of pull a nose, to where he's going to be. And he's just coming up. He just rapidly accelerates beyond anything that I've ever seen, crosses my nose, and it's gone. And I'm like, whoa. Narrator, the tic-tac appears to have vanished. But as the jets streak towards a prearranged rendezvous location known as the cap point, the radio chatter becomes frantic. The controller from Princeton comes up right as we're doing all this and says, hey, sir, you're not going to believe this. He goes, but that thing is at your cap point. Narrator, according to Fravor, the tic-tac accelerated from a standing position and flew approximately 60 miles in under a minute, as fast as 3,700 miles an hour. How did the tic-tac know the pilot's cap point? And how did it accelerate so quickly? David Favor, you've got something that can accelerate and disappear and then show up 60 miles away. Kind of in awe a little bit because you go, whoa, we don't have that, And I'm talking we're flying one of the premier airplanes on the planet. What was this? There is a capability out there. Don't know where it's from. Not saying it's from outer space, but not saying it's from here either. Narrator, back on the Nimitz, the pilots tell the rest of the squadron what just happened. David Favor, the next crew was getting ready. So we're talking to them about this. And they're like, you've got to be kidding. They took us seriously. And the WSO, the guy in the back seat, said, I'm going to go find it. Narrator, the next jets launch at a targeting pod with an infrared sensor and camera. David Favor, it jammed the radar, but he got a lock on it. And that's the video that you see. If that doesn't weird you out, then I don't know what does.